Episode 7 of The Rings of Power has officially cemented its place in fantasy history, with one of the worst battles ever put to screen. As after 6 agonizing hours stuck in this pathetic version of Middle-earth, the siege of Eregion has begun. The dramatic conclusion that has been teased since the trailer, as Adar leads an army of orcs to confront Sauron's forehead.
Look at it! Look at it! Look at it!
And throughout this series, we have had the fun of exploring many different scenes, from the adventures of Elfguy and the mighty Bronwyn, to watching Guy Ladriel be one of the most unlikable creatures we've ever seen.
We leave soon enough. The order is given. We march at first light.
All the way to Glug, the sensitive orc that wants to go home. An endless amount of ways to explain the difference in quality between this embarrassing vanity project and the greatest trilogy of all time. And no matter how you feel about the movies, whether you're a die-hard fan or a casual viewer, the one thing that everyone can generally agree on is the quality of the action, raising the bar for large-scale battle scenes, and creating some of the most memorable sets and sequences, thanks to the incredible team at the Weta Workshop, and the attention to detail put in by Peter Jackson and the rest of the crew. So with Amazon's Rings of Power being the most expensive show ever made, the opportunity to continue the legacy of iconic fight scenes was well within their grasp. As we have seen with Game of Thrones and now House of the Dragon, the effort it takes to create large-scale battle scenes in a TV series, from the extensive storyboarding to maintain a realistic flow of action, to the focus on character to provide the audience with a meaningful payoff. But this show is determined to remind us that it's in the hands of complete amateurs, totally incapable of producing half the quality, even with double the budget, and have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And I want to take the time to break down the scene to emphasize that point, and put this horrendous show behind me, with the Battle of Pelennor Fields versus the sloppy siege of Eregion.
Prepare for battle!
Gandalf rallies the men of Gondor and takes charge of the city's defenses, ordering them to counterattack, launching boulders into the horde and making sure they focus their volleys on the correct target.
Aim for the trolls! Kill the trolls! Bring them down!
And just seconds into the battle, they make sure to provide a clear idea of the most suitable tactics, and utilize everything they can to prevent the towers from reaching the wall. And in one of the greatest establishing shots of all time, the Nazgul are reintroduced, bringing death from above, and giving us a clear idea of the size of the army and the city, providing the necessary context to understand the flow of the battle. And rather than just being there to make a dramatic entrance, they strategically take out the trebuchets and the archers in order to allow the horde to proceed, effectively countering Gandalf's attempt to slow them down. And after the top of the wall is breached, they show the trouble they are having with the door, providing the setup for the next stage of the siege.
No matter what comes through that gate, you will stand your ground!
And as fear consumes the men of Gondor, we get a great example of Gandalf's strength as a leader, reminding them of who they are, what they fight for, and ensuring they live up to their name, giving them the strength they need to perform, as they put their lives on the line for the sake of the city, maintaining formation even as they're surrounded. Instead of depending on spectacle, they show the volleys of arrows affect the ones without chest plates, while the other tanks right through their shots, and having Gandalf target the neck in order to bring him down. But now with the city breached from above and below, they are completely overwhelmed, as the streets are flooded with the corpses of civilians and soldiers, and we see the two commanders finally face off in the perfect depiction of good versus evil. The horns blare, and the riders of Rohan appear on the horizon, looking down on the forces of Sauron, and bringing a glimmer of hope at the brink of defeat. The type of scene that can only be described as movie magic, where every meaningful element of the story aligns in this perfect moment, providing the kind of payoff that is very rarely achieved. Capping off one of the greatest redemption arcs and showing the fighting spirit of the race of men, even against the greatest of odds. The excellent choice to cut the soundtrack not only allowed us to truly feel the raw brutality of the cavalry charge, but made the arrival of the war elephants that much more impactful. Using every aspect of filmmaking to play with our senses and provide an incredible experience. And without skipping a beat, Theoden rallies his men and proceeds to further display their courage as they take this new threat head on. And since they took the time to establish their skill on horseback and their willingness to put their lives on the line, we are able to fully immerse ourselves in the scene and take it seriously, providing the opportunity for character in the heat of battle. And after his undeniable display of leadership, the Witch King dives into the action to take out Theoden, setting up the dramatic payoff for his niece Eowyn, a scene that is constantly referenced as one that would be hated if it came out in today's climate, while constantly ignoring the components that make it work. Where in the Rings of Power, female characters are forced into positions of authority strictly for the sake of representation, Eowyn will forever be one of the best examples of how to do it right. A character that was forced to deal with the reality of her gender in times of war, and do the tasks required of her regardless of her true desires, in order to ensure the survival of her people.
You must lead the people to Helm's Deep, and make haste.
I can fight!
No! You must do this for me.
Taking the time to show us that she has more skill with the blade than she does in the kitchen, and naturally building up her story to this glorious moment, disguising herself as a soldier of Rohan in order to join the fight. And after a last-minute save from Mary, using a barrel blade to stab him, she manages to get the finishing blow.
I am no man.
A powerful scene, and a reminder of the days where heroines were made by talented artists and treated with respect. But why is it well written?
The women of this country learned long ago. Those without swords can still die upon them. I fear neither death nor pain.
One of the best parts of reviewing these films is not just getting a better understanding of what made them so memorable, but to then try to find the right way to express that to an audience. As just like with Helm's Deep, the battle was broken down into clear stages, making it easy to follow the action. But one of the biggest differences was having both commanders on the front lines, providing a greater opportunity for character moments and different perspectives.
What of the wizard?
Getting the chance to see Gandalf show his quality as a leader, ordering the men of Gondor to defend the city in spite of Denethor's outburst, and facing off against the Witch King in siege warfare, trying to out-strategize the other, only to be outmaneuvered. Having King Theoden and the full strength of the Rohirrim smash through half of the army, only to be ambushed and outnumbered, to finally being pushed to the point of having a hobbit from the Shire and a woman from Rohan bring down one of the most powerful beings in all of Middle-earth.
I will kill you if you touch him.
To achieve a payoff this effective under the shadow of a massive battle takes the type of talent you rarely see nowadays, tying back to the core theme of the film and providing an ending to 3 fantastic arcs.
You've some skill with a blade.
Now, let's compare that to the Rings of Power. The battle begins as the orcs rain fire on the city, causing panic and chaos for everyone inside. Everyone except for Sauron, who casually strolls through the streets like everything is fine. He announces he's taking control of the city's defenses, but then he proceeds to stand around for ages to flirt with the pretty blonde, rather than taking any kind of actions. So since giant balls of flame and dead civilians isn't enough to get his attention, the orcs decide to do the most insane trick shot you've ever seen, knocking down a mountain. And like masters of Tetris, they somehow manage to form a bridge.
They're damming the river.
The elves panic and prepare for a ground assault, while Sauron is still buffering. And then Elf Guy pops up like a magical fairy that goes wherever the plot requires, as they now have no idea what to do with him. And for the second time in a row, they show this dumb blonde, making it almost impossible to get a sense of the danger they're in, when they give the most random, pointless characters plot armor this thick. Compare that to Celebrimbor, who within 5 seconds of stepping outside gets yeeted through the air. Even Pippin being on the castle walls was clearly a mistake that almost got Gandalf shanked. But they used this to further develop their relationship, and once this was over, he told him to get back to the Citadel. And unlike the elves in Helm's Deep that made a coordinated effort in a foreign castle, the Eregion elves are a rambling group of idiots with no battle tactics or teamwork whatsoever, skipping all the tiny details that make these battles so enjoyable. And after Celebrimbor throws a tantrum and the blonde gets chucked off the wall, it seems that all hope is lost. But never fear, Elrond is here, with his stupid hat and an army of elves. No, not those elves, the shit ones. And rather than instructing the host like Theoden did to utilize an actual game plan, they charge face first into the horde. But then we get the shocking reveal that Galadriel was trapped in the box, and the entire army stops in their tracks. Quite possibly one of the stupidest twists they could have done, as not only is there zero tension since we know she can't die, but the momentum of the battle scene is completely ruined. Can you imagine Theoden and the Witch King pausing the Battle of Pelennor Fields to have a council meeting? Cutting away to the Ents during Helm's Deep was an effective way to pace the battle scenes. But this is just nonsense.
The ring.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
So after failing to come to an agreement, it cuts, and we are suddenly back in the heat of battle. Just what the hell were all these elves doing during the meeting? Am I supposed to believe the entire city was on pause? All the orcs just waiting outside the walls to see what the verdict was. This is why the other battles are praised for being able to understand the stages and the progression of events throughout the scene. Where in the Rings of Power, it's impossible to keep track of anything. So after hours of battle, the elves have finally come up with a decent strategy, and we see Elrond and Exvigor on the front lines, desperately trying to stop them from overwhelming the castle. And after doing absolutely nothing and saying about 2 lines throughout the entire season, she is given the biggest payoff of the episode. Not Adar or Sauron, not old Brimby or Bitchface, not even Elrond or Elf Guy. This pointless elf gets one of the most dramatic death scenes of the show, as after being riddled with arrows, she somehow summons the strength to shoot a random bucket of oil and blows up the entire front line. Stunning, brave, and unbelievably stupid. But why is it badly written?
After the dragons died, wildfire was the key to the Targaryen power.
My companion takes issue.
If I could tell you how many crazy old men I've seen pushing carts around army camps, making grand claims about jars full of pig shit. I don't know if you've ever seen a battle, old man, but things can get a bit messy. Men die, men shit themselves, men run, which means pots falling, which means fire inside the walls, which means the poor cons trying to defend the city end up burning it down. Men win wars, not magic tricks.
When Stannis Baratheon sailed across the Blackwater to take King's Landing, Tyrion had spent weeks preparing for his arrival, understanding their strengths and finding a way to even the numbers.
Mother! Get down!
Grima being a former man of Rohan was all we needed to believe he would have knowledge of the castle's weaknesses, providing a clear path for Saruman to devise his plan. Éowyn was introduced in the second film, and they didn't waste a moment of screen time fleshing out her traits and desires. They took the time to establish her love for her uncle and her disdain for her position, and gave us every component we needed to create a meaningful payoff. Even Haldir, with his limited screen time, had a greater impact, highlighting the elven casualties, strengthening Aragorn's resolve, and giving him a moment to pay his respects as they were longtime friends. Whether it's character moments or battle tactics, it's simply a matter of setup and payoff, something these 3 scenes understood.
Prepare to land. Your Grace, the dwarf has played his little trick. The wildfire? We can only play it once.
Come with me and take this city!
And then you get the Rings of Power, where a character with no traits or backstory gets one of the biggest moments in the series. They have done nothing to show what she means to Elrond or the rest of the crew, or why she's the only one who can make this shot. They don't even bother to explain the bucket that blows up like it's filled with C4. They skip everything that could possibly make it meaningful or satisfying, just to give this nothing burger a martyr scene. This wasn't a master plan like Tyrion Lannister's bomb, and unlike Haldir, as soon as she died, nobody gave a shit and went right back to fighting. One of the most perfect examples of failed empowerment, yet somehow this is all it takes to be worthy of praise, as we have seen in The Last Jedi, Kenobi, and countless other stories that fail to understand the most important ingredient: character. As I have been given no reason to care about her life or her death, and I could only laugh in the face of the people who want me to consider this a powerful moment, when it's one of the most hollow things I've ever seen. And it is honestly my biggest takeaway from this season. A hollow, empty shell, devoid of passionate writers of creativity of any kind, and doomed to follow this pattern of stupidity, lacking the humility to course correct, and determined to go down with the ship.
Do you know why a ship floats?
Jesus Christ! No! Jesus Christ! I warned you! I warned you, but did you listen to me? Oh, no, you knew it all, didn't you?